What if I told you one pink microphone, one blown kiss, and one song just turned into one of BTS's most unforgettable global moments? Because in just a matter of days, BTS didn't just come back, they exploded back into the spotlight. And somehow, in the middle of all of that chaos, celebration, and emotion, Jin once again became impossible to look away from. Not just because he looked unreal, which, let's be honest, he absolutely did, but because this entire moment felt like watching 7 artists return, not just as a group, but as 7 completely different worlds. And fans, they noticed everything. From Jin's worldwide handsome moment on the Jimmy Fallon Show to BTS turning Swim into 7 completely different emotional experiences, to a documentary dropping the same day that promises to show the pain, pressure, and truth behind their long-awaited return. This wasn't just a comeback. This was a statement. And honestly, it may be one of the most fascinating BTS eras we've seen in years. So let's talk about what just happened, because there's a lot. BTS appeared on NBC's The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, and from the second they stepped onto that stage, the energy was already electric. You could feel it. Not just the excitement of seeing them on one of the biggest US late-night platforms again, but that very specific kind of emotion that only happens when people have waited a long time for something. And then came that Jin moment. When one of the members joked about missing his worldwide handsome face while they were away, Jin didn't just sit there and smile. No, he stood up and blew a kiss. And that was it. That was the moment. That was the clip that immediately started flying across timelines, fan pages, edits, and reaction posts all over the world. Because somehow, Jin always knows how to do this. He knows how to take one tiny playful gesture and turn it into a full-on cultural event. And what made it even more powerful is that it didn't feel forced. It felt so Jin. Confident, funny, self-aware, charming, and somehow still sweet enough to make the entire internet lose its mind. And of course, once people started talking about it, the conversation became impossible to stop. Because yes, fans were laughing. Yes, they were screaming. Yes, they were replaying it an unhealthy number of times. But they were also saying the same thing. How does he still look like that? Because Jin's visuals during this entire US promo run have been honestly ridiculous. Not normal handsome, not he cleans up well handsome. I'm talking statue in a museum, unreal in real life, how is this even allowed handsome? And maybe that's why the next part of the story feels almost poetic. Because while Jin was already making noise with his Fallon appearance, he was also doing something even more breathtaking. He performed Swim live at the Guggenheim Museum in New York. And if you know the Guggenheim, you already know why this matters. That venue isn't just beautiful, it's cinematic, it's artistic, it's dramatic. It has this surreal circular stage that almost makes every performance feel like it's happening inside a dream. And in the middle of that setting, there was Jin, holding his trademark pink microphone, standing in that stunning space, singing live, and apparently that performance didn't just look beautiful, it sounded beautiful too. Because one thing about Jin that people keep underestimating and then immediately regretting underestimating is that he doesn't just show up with visuals, he shows up with vocals that hit emotionally. And that's exactly why his performances stay with people. Because Jin doesn't perform like someone trying to impress you, he performs like someone trying to reach you. And when a song like Swim is involved, that matters even more. Because Swim is now becoming something bigger than just a title track. It's turning into an emotional universe. And BTS just proved that in the most interesting way possible. Because on March 27th, BTS released a remix album called Keep Swimming. And this is where things get really fascinating. Because instead of just dropping a few standard remixes and moving on, they did something that feels much more personal. They gave us Swim in 7 colors, 7 emotional lenses, 7 musical identities. In other words, they took one song and let each member reinterpret it through his own artistic soul. And honestly, that's such a BTS thing to do. Because BTS has never really been about making music that only sounds good. They make music that reveals who they are. And this remix project sounds like exactly that. The album includes 9 total tracks, the original Swim, an instrumental, and 7 member-specific versions. Which means this isn't just a remix album, it's basically a musical personality test. And once you hear how each member approached the song, you start to understand just how different and how complementary they all are. Let's start with RM. His version reportedly leans into chill hip-hop, creating a softer, more relaxed atmosphere. Which honestly feels so fitting. Because RM has always had that ability to make music feel like a late-night thought you weren't ready to admit out loud. The kind of sound that doesn't shout for your attention, but quietly takes over your entire mood. Then there's Jin. And this is where things get really exciting, because Jin reportedly transformed Swim through alternative rock, blending Brit rock and punk rock energy into the song. And I need everyone to pause for a second and appreciate how powerful that is. Because if you've been paying attention to Jin's musical direction, this makes so much sense. There's something about his voice that becomes absolutely magnetic when it's paired with music that has edge, tension, and emotional force. A Jin rock version of Swim? That's not just a remix, that's an experience. That's the kind of track that feels like driving too fast at night while trying not to text the person you still haven't gotten over. Then comes Suga, who reportedly added a melodic techno interpretation with layered three-dimensional club sounds, which already sounds dangerous in the best possible way. Because Suga has always been brilliant at taking emotion and making it feel cold, sharp, addictive, and cinematic. His version sounds like it might be the one that sneaks up on people and becomes their obsession at 2:13 a.m. J-Hope brought in Afrobeat, with guitar and piano melodies carrying a more exotic, groove-centered rhythm. And honestly, if anyone knows how to turn a track into movement, it's Hobie. His musical instincts are so tied to rhythm, energy, and body language that you can almost imagine his version before even hearing it. It probably doesn't just sound good. It probably moves. Then there's Jimin, who reportedly transformed Swim into a slow jam R&B version. And yeah, that already sounds unfair. Soulful guitar, soft keyboard textures, bouncy drums, sensuality, and emotion. That is so Jimin-coded, it's almost suspicious. Because Jimin has always had that gift of making vulnerability sound beautiful. He doesn't just sing feelings, he somehow becomes them. Then V elevated the track through an electronic remix built around intense bass and modified textures. And if there's one thing Taehyung does effortlessly, it's atmosphere. He knows how to make a song feel expensive, moody, mysterious, and intimate all at once. His version sounds like it could be the kind of song that makes people stare out of windows dramatically for absolutely no reason. And then there's Jungkook, who reportedly leaned into acoustic, lo-fi guitar and warm vocals to make Swim feel even more comforting. And that honestly feels like the perfect emotional landing. Because if some of the other versions sound like chaos, heartbreak, intensity, seduction, or transformation, Jungkook sounds like home. Like the version you play when the world is too loud and you just want to feel okay again. And when you put all of that together, you realize something really beautiful. Swim isn't just one song, it's 7 emotional truths living inside one melody. And maybe that's what makes BTS so powerful after all these years. Not just that they work as a group, but that each member carries such a strong artistic identity that when they all touch the same song, it becomes something completely new every time. And if that wasn't enough emotional content for one day, BTS also released their Netflix documentary film, BTS: The Return. And this one feels important, because according to the article, the documentary captures the struggles the members faced while working on their music, as well as the process that shaped the BTS of today, as they prepare to release a new album for the first time in about 3 years and 9 months. And that phrase alone hits hard. Because think about what that means. This isn't just a group coming back because the schedule says it's time. This is a group coming back after distance, growth, pressure, expectations, and change. After years of carrying not only their own dreams, but the weight of what BTS means to the world. And I think that's why this era already feels so emotional. Because behind the performances, the visuals, the interviews, the remixes, and the laughter, there's also something much more human happening. There's a story about returning, about rebuilding, about reconnecting, about figuring out who you are now, after everything. And maybe that's why fans are reacting so intensely, because it's not just exciting, it's meaningful. It feels like we're not just watching BTS promote music, It feels like we're watching them reintroduce themselves. And somehow, even in the middle of all that emotion, they're still winning. Literally. Because BTS also made headlines at the 2026 iHeartRadio Music Awards. J-Hope took home the award for Favorite TikTok Dance with his solo single, Mona Lisa. And then BTS scored another win with Sweet Dreams Miguel, which won Favorite K-Pop Collab. And as if that wasn't enough, Season 2 of Is This Right, starring Jimin and Jungkook, also won in the Favorite On-Screen category. Which honestly feels so deserved, because those two can turn absolute chaos into entertainment without even trying. And the fact that the series captured their unpredictable friendship journey through Switzerland and Vietnam just makes that win even more special. So when you zoom out and look at everything that happened, you realize this wasn't just one good press day. This was a full BTS takeover. Jin going viral on Fallon, a stunning live swim performance at the Guggenheim, a remix album that turns one song into 7 identities, a documentary revealing the emotional truth behind the return, and multiple major wins proving their influence never left. That's not random momentum, that's legacy in motion. And maybe the most interesting part of all of this is that BTS still doesn't feel like a group trying to repeat the past. They feel like a group trying to become something new without losing who they are. And that's a much harder thing to do. But if this week proved anything, it's that they might be doing exactly that. And Jin, he somehow managed to stand right at the center of all of it, with one blown kiss, one pink microphone, one unforgettable face, and one performance that reminded everyone why he remains one of the most captivating people on any stage he touches. So maybe the real question isn't whether BTS is back, because clearly, they are. Maybe the real question is this: if this is only the beginning of the swim era, how much bigger is this about to get? Because something tells me we haven't even seen the best part yet.